once I confirm the save. So that should be 3, 2, 1, go. And Chimkin, if you want to do some early introduction of the game, I guess you can go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So this is Harry Potter years 5 through 7, so obviously it covers the back half of the series, mainly going off of the films. We're starting right at the beginning of Order of the Phoenix here. Normally, you're supposed to be able to play the episodes of these movies in order. That's the intended way to play the game. Unlike earlier Lego games, you can't actually play them out of order with the vanilla game. But with some glitches, we're going to be able to skip a lot of the game and skip between episodes. So these first couple rooms are pretty straightforward. There's actually you're supposed to fight the Dementors there, but if you just run past them, you can get straight to this trigger that takes you to the next room. And this is an auto scroller, and Seed's gonna use this time to get some studs here. Normally in Lego games, you want to end the first level without, with as few studs as possible, or 0 studs. A lot of them do that. But in this game, we actually need to get as many studs as possible because we're trying to buy a spell pretty early on called Glacius, which is the freeze spell. It's a pretty important spell for this run as it allows us to use a pretty powerful glitch that will allow us to skip a lot of levels.
Yeah, and a good thing to start off the run with is like this game mainly has glitches that involve very high FPS. We're talking like 400, 500 in some places, but the first level I'm actually starting on at 60 FPS. For two main reasons. One is because the objects that I'm pulling right now with the magic can be a bit finicky on higher FPS, and for a piece of tech that we'll also see in the next room of this level. And oh, I missed this. And this is also a piece of tech that's in a few newer LEGO games called camera pan skipping, where if you drop in player 2, right at the beginning of a camera pan, you can actually start moving again during it. And I kinda got a scuffed version of that there, but it still saved a bit of time.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful piece of tech. It's going to be used all over the place in this run since there's a ton of camera pans, but luckily we don't have to sit through all of them.
Yeah, and if you see me randomly drop out in some places and drop back in again, you can assume that it's for a camera pan skip. And the piece of tech I was talking about on 60 FPS is right here. If you're on very low FPS, like 60 or 30, and you spam the special button with Arthur Weasley, which he has the wrench that can repair objects with, it's actually faster if you have low FPS for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's the case in a number of Lego games for some reason. If you're watching the Indiana Jones run yesterday, the same piece of tech is in that game as well. Um, First level, since we don't have access to any of the spells yet that we unlock, we don't have a ton of options for puzzles that could be in the level. So this level is pretty straightforward with the obstacles that are in the way. Um, you can see Siedemnastek is gonna have a bit of downtime here after he throws the paper airplane, and that's going to give him some time to collect all these studs that are sitting around. So there's a couple purples. I think there's just one purple actually, and a ton of blue studs, which is gonna put him at close to 90,000, or maybe more than 90,000 studs after this level. And we need 110,000 studs by about, I think it's about the 10-minute mark in the run. So that'll
Yeah, something
give
like
a
that.
really good start on the stud count there.
And this is actually a very interesting skip because it involves a camera pan skip, and what usually happens during the camera pan is that the wizard that's over to the left, forces the box to stop the little, like, I don't know, the airplane thing, the paper plane or whatever. But you can, if you skip the camera pan, you're actually able to force the box with the second player.
Yeah. Um, I think there's a couple of camera pan skips like that where if you skip the camera pan, you can like do an interaction that normally happens during the camera pan. I can't think of another one off the top of my head though, so maybe that's the only one.
Yeah, I don't actually remember. It might be more. And right off the bat, after this level, I'm gonna be turning VSync to off, which will uncap my FPS, because, like I mentioned just a second ago, this game has a lot of FPS-dependent skips, which we'll see in about 2 minutes, I believe. One of the first ones.
Yep. Sounds about
And
right.
yeah, I'm gonna be collecting studs on player 2 while I'm moving towards the objective of player 1 here. There's a lot of micro RNG you can do in this game, which is very nice.
Yeah. It's actually really convenient how many studs are in this first like 10 minutes of the run. Um, it'd be really unfortunate if we couldn't easily get the studs that we need by the time we need them. But luckily, it's very easy.
Yeah,
You're gonna see
and
that
yeah, go ahead.
he shot that yellow thing over on the right. It spawned in a character token. In this game, you need to get a collectible called a character token to unlock a character. And he didn't pick that one up yet, but we will be picking that one up later. Since there is actually free play in this any percent run, believe it or not. And there's a couple of characters that we want for free play since they end up saving time overall, and that's one of them. We'll see more of it later though.
Yeah, we'll explain the first, like, why we have to even do free play when we get to the first oddity of this run, I guess.
Yeah. But for the meantime, we're still just playing the level intended. We don't have any spells or glitches that we're able to do, so we still have to play these puzzles here at the beginning, but that will change very quickly.
Yes. So right now we're heading to the first lesson, I guess, although it's not even a lesson. Dada Band, which is ironically a lesson where we lose all the spells, but we also unlock the ability to use spells in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the
I think it,
first instance of VSync off, where you just the player just launched, basically, like got a lot of horizontal movement for no reason.
yeah.
And
I kind of like the Dada band lesson from excuse me, from a design perspective. It's kind of like an explanation for why all the spells you learned in 1 through 4 are no longer learned. I think
yeah,
that's
it's a
kind of
very cool thing for
yeah.
sure. Okay, so here's gonna be the first VSync of actual piece of tech called pause flying, and you're able to skip this entire lesson by if you have very high FPS and you pause your game mid-air, your falling animation will actually reset, resetting all your speed mid-air, and you're able to cross some very insane distances with that. Like you saw me get the key there and open the door very early. You're normally supposed to get a strength potion going there and do some puzzles, but we skipped all of that.
Yep. So that's our first major skip here. But now we're gonna go by Glacius, like I was talking about. Um, this will enable a lot more shenanigans. We just barely have the stud total there.
Yeah, but that was
Uh,
like, okay. I
yeah,
knew exactly how much stats I had.
yeah. There's a lot of backup studs if you're low anyway. So, and it usually is you get there at just the right amount. You're not really worried anyway. But now that we have Glacius, that opens up a lot of routing possibilities in the run. And I believe we're going to see the first example of a freeze clip right here, which is
Yes.
the big piece of tech that comes with having Glacius. So normally you're supposed to lift this box that this guy drops into the lion's mouth to open this door, but because this animation is really long, you can actually just use freeze or the freeze spell, freeze Ron, and right when he's in the middle of the Lumos animation, and Lumos does this weird thing where it kind of interrupts animations, and if you freeze the character right as they're pulling out Lumos, um, and then switch off and back on to Lumos, it will put you in this perpetual state of rocking back and forth. And with VSync off, you rock very violently enough that you can just pass straight through walls, which is really broken. Um, and not only does it allow us to skip a lot of um, intended puzzles and rooms in the game, but it also gives us the ability to enter levels early, which skips like whole levels and lessons of the run, and we'll see a lot of that coming up here in a bit. But first, we have this lesson here, Thestrals. We don't actually need to play this lesson for any ability, but we do need to get past this lesson in year 5. So, because we can't really sequence break within episodes too well, we are going to have to play this. That was a little skip you just did there. Sloped areas of this game have really strange collision. You can kind of like slide off them. That was another pause fly right there. Skip that bridge, just like in the Dada Band lesson.
And I want to explain the Lumos. So if you're paying attention, when I was giving items to the Thestrals, I was switching to Lumos very quickly, and that allowed me to instantly skip the animation of the Thestrals like getting the items. And that speeds up the whole process of like getting the animation by like 3 seconds, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So we mentioned that Lumos was used for freeze clipping to interrupt the animation. It's also used there when giving things to people. You can also use it when drinking potions, when pulling a strength handle, and when putting on the Spectra specs as well. So it's a small time save that you do probably like 50 or 60 times in the run or something like that, and really adds up over time quite a bit.
And this is gonna be the first sequence break of the run here, which is very subtle, but it might seem like we're not skipping much here, but we're actually we're going to Weasley boxes right now, and you're normally not supposed to unlock Weasley boxes until you're done with 4, I believe.
Yeah, it's the third to last like segment of year 5. There's only 2 levels after it, so being able to get into this early skips a lot of episode 5 that we might otherwise need to play. The reason that we can get into this one early is just because this area of the hub is when you go into it in year 5 for the first time, it just thinks that you're in Weasley boxes regardless of where you are in the actual run. And because you can unlock the Weasley boxes spell just without having to do anything special, or not the spell, excuse me, the Weasley boxes ability, we're able to just get it right now. And
that might be really bad actually. Hold on. I don't know if there's anything I can do. I need to just quit out. It's a soft lock, but unfortunately it doesn't lose that much time.
yeah, that's just you should be able to get back if you just
Yeah,
reload.
Don't know why I cut in the corner so bad. Oh my god, it actually might lose a bit because I'm all the way at Thestrals, but that's fine. It's not as bad as you might think.
Yeah, there are some soft locks in this game that actually like lock your file down and you're unable to progress anymore. So, fortunately, they're avoidable as long as you know what you're doing. And
Yes.
I don't think we're gonna have problems with those. But yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes
that's
when you
marathon luck, I guess.
yeah. Sometimes when you get into areas early, it does cause problems with not being able to finish them if you end up back in bounds like that. But the main goal of this skip here is we're skipping this whole courtyard that skips a number of puzzles. Because there's enough out-of-bounds collision that you can walk on, you're able to completely bypass that first room of Weasley boxes. We'll get to see it again here in a second.
Yeah.
And this clip here, the only reason we're doing that is just to get into this episode. Later, we're going to unlock a key that opens that door, so we don't need to do that clip anymore.
Hopefully this is gonna go a bit smoother this time. Because this is one of the worst freeze clips.
I guess it's good to mention, so freeze clips are kind of RNG. The direction that you go with each movement is basically random if it's right or left, which gives you a pretty wide range of where you can end up after a couple of seconds. and you do need to go in like the correct direction, the direction you're trying to go in order to clip. So sometimes you can have sequences like this where you just kind of get stuck with not clipping through the wall, which is a little annoying. Fortunately for a lot of clips, you can kind of angle them in a certain way that makes it easier to get the clip more often, which is good, but you still can sometimes end up with situations like that.
And it's good to mention that a lot of people have easier time with a lot of freeze clips and others have troubles with them. It's just like it's just hardware dependent, like what freeze clips are good for you and bad, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it is FPS based, like we were saying. So if you have a lot of FPS, you get a lot more horizontal movement. Now that we're in this room, we just need to put together this firework 3 pieces, and once we do that, we'll unlock the ability. Unfortunately, the game will play a cutscene that then spawns our characters back outside of this segment of the castle, because otherwise we'd be stuck in here, and we would not be able to go back because we didn't do any of the puzzles in the previous room. But fortunately, the game design allows us to completely avoid that potential problem.
Yeah, this game is just a very convenient Lego game, or a very convenient speed game, I guess. There's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff that, if the devs just did a bit differently, this run wouldn't exist.
Yep. So now we're on to Augmente, I believe, which
Yes.
is a spell that is learned in year 6, actually. But because it's the only thing that's ever happens in the story in this room, clipping into it just puts you into Augmente. Some rooms in the hub, so basically in the hubs, or in the code for the hub, each room has a different version depending on what year it is. And for hub rooms that you're only able to access during certain years, so like ones you aren't able to access in year 5, it doesn't have a year 5 version. So it just puts you in the year version for a different episode, which changes the year that you're in. And when you do that, you're actually able to just completely start that episode from that point and bypass whatever levels of the previous episodes you haven't played yet. You might be wondering why we didn't just go straight to year 8, or sorry, year 7 part 2 from year 5. The reason for that is because abilities don't unlock automatically, and you do need a bunch of abilities in this game in order to beat the final episode of the game. So the early game of this run is kind of a scavenger hunt to get as many abilities that we need as possible. Unfortunately, this Augmente ability, which is one that we need, is very quick to unlock. You don't need to actually play through the episode to get to this one, which is not the case with some of the other spells.
And at the beginning of the lesson, you kind of could have seen that I jumped on the fire without dying or without taking damage. That's a piece of tech called buffer jumping. Basically, if you jump on the first possible frame, which we do by holding the A button mid-air, or the jump button mid-air, you're able to just like avoid death on the first frame, or damage, and it's very convenient that you can just jump off of that and get to the top of the room. Oh.
Yeah.
And you might want to explain what's happening here.
Yeah, sure. So normally we would supposed to just go through the door there, but that would take us directly into 6-1. However, the trigger for 6-1 is just placed in front of the trigger for leading you to the London streets, and we don't actually want to go into 6-1 yet. We do want the trigger for it to be there. So now we're going to go clip into the diner over here, which is a scene from the beginning of Year 7, Part 1. And this will take us into Year 7, since the first time you go into the diner, it's in Year 7.
The only time,
now
actually.
That we're... I'm sorry?
The only time, actually.
Yeah, that's true. And now that we're in Year 7, and we re-enter here, it will place the trigger for the first level of Year 7 into the door. And it puts it in front of the trigger for the first level of Year 6, meaning when we go through this door, we'll be in Year 7-1.
I mean, sometimes it does not put the trigger in front of the 6-1 door, and that's a soft lock if that happens, but I've never actually had that happen, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I have had that either.
There have been a couple of people that had that happen though, and it just ends the run instantly.
Yes, fortunately, we don't have to deal with that during this marathon.
Yeah, that's a very big relief. But if that were to happen, I had a file prepared just in case that happened. So we wouldn't
Okay,
even need to worry.
good prep. Um, so we're making a polyjuice potion here, which is this room does actually unlock the ability polyjuice potion in the hub, as far as I'm aware. But that isn't
Yes.
one that we use in this run. The reason we're in this level actually is to unlock two abilities we get in the second half of the level. The Deluminator on Ron and Hermione's Bag, which are two abilities that are used a lot during Year 7 Part 2. And because of that, we do need to play this level. But fortunately, after we play this level, there's actually nothing else in this episode that we need. So we don't need to play any other level in this episode for any reason. But the reason that we're playing this early here is because getting out of Year 7 after beating the first level without beating the second level of Year 7 is kind of tricky to do. There's only a couple ways, and one way of doing it is to use that trigger to Year 6 level 1, which we placed on our way to here. So once we beat this level, that will get rid of the trigger for the first level of Year 7, and then when we walk through that door, even though we're still in Year 7, it'll take us to Year 6 in the first level, which will allow us to escape this episode and then continue on our way. So that's the reason why we play this so early. You'll see that we unlock the Deluminator right here, and then as soon as Hermione uses this bag pad, we'll unlock that. And something that's important to note is Ron now does not have the Lumos spell anymore because the Deluminator replaces it, meaning that he's not really a good character for freeze clipping anymore, since he won't be able to do the Lumos setup, and which freeze clipping without Lumos is pretty not good.
It's just RNG, basically.
Yeah,
There's no way to control it.
And it's really slowly as well. So we're gonna avoid freeze clipping with Ron for the rest of the run, as I don't think there's any in the run, right?
Yes, there's not a single freeze clip with Ron.
There are
And
like some places where you could, but it's definitely a bad thing to do.
And if you look at my stat count right now, you might be confused why I have 720k stats on player 1, and that's because of the auto-scroller section, which was the third room of this level, that we didn't even tell anything about, and in that section, for whatever reason, your stats get multiplied by the amount of FPS you have. So, since I have like, I don't know how many FPS I have there, but basically, yeah, that just multiplied my stats by a very insane amount there. And this amount of stats is actually way over what we need for the entire run.
Yeah, we are. I mentioned this earlier, but we are going to buy a couple of characters. Fortunately, they're pretty cheap. I think we only need like
275k.
75? Okay, yeah, which we have like 3 or 4 times that amount by the time we get there. So, very lenient stud routing there.
Actually, we only need 25k, but if you want to go like for the fastest shots, it's 275.
Yeah, there's the character that we need to buy that is 100% essential is pretty cheap, but there's another character that saves a bit of time. So now we're going to head back to that door I was talking about that takes us to 6-1, and we'll get out of Year 7 Part 1, never to return. We've already done everything. So the first 3 levels we play in this run is the first level of Year 5, then the first level of Year 7 Part 1, and then the first level of Year 6. We're going all over the place here.
Yeah, and this is a good time to explain out-of-bounds doors, because this is gonna be the first example of one in this level.
Yeah.
So basically, if you have watched the villain free play run that Lowe's did the other day of LEGO Batman 1, you might have noticed that he had some like doors that were out of bounds that instantly ended the level. And this game basically has one of those doors in every single room of the game. And we will be actually hitting one of those doors to end this level very early in the next room. But those doors have some one big consequence if you hit them, and we'll explain it in a second, I guess.
Yeah. I guess I can just get into it now since we're about to do
Oh yeah,
it.
go ahead.
But basically, if the door is in the last room of a level, like this one here, and you hit it, it beats the level and it unlocks free play, but it doesn't progress the story in the episode. Now, you'll see he hit it there and it did beat the level and free play unlocked. It doesn't matter in this case since we actually don't need to play any other episode or any other part of year 6. We just need to play that level to unlock a level in year 6 on the free play board. And you'll see here as we pass it, the board has year 5, year 6, and year 7-1 unlocked. And that's all we need to do. But because the story didn't progress, the trigger for 6-1 is still in the door. So in order to get past that, we need to click here again and then bounce into this. And then we can be on our way.
Yeah, it was actually a very quick freeze clip. I'm actually glad it worked.
Yeah. So I guess this is a decent time to talk about Reductoless.
Yeah.
Since Reducto is a spell that's learned in year 6, and I guess real quick, this is the Muggle Orphan token that we were talking about earlier, and we'll use that later on in free play. But we just got it right now since it loses no time to get. And normally there's a lesson here for Spectrospecs.
Actually, I'm trying to skip it, but at the same time I'm just doing it casually because this freeze clip is a very bad freeze clip. And I probably won't save time with the clips, I'm just gonna do it the intended way.
Yeah. This is a pretty small time save anyway, because normally you just complete this lesson, and this one also, you don't actually need to be in the correct part of the story to actually unlock this. As long as you're in year 6 and you enter this room, you can unlock the specs. But it's not an ability we actually need, and we don't need to progress the story past it, so you are able to skip it, but like Seed said, that clip can be a little bad sometimes. So, Reductoless. It was discovered by Seed, actually, in April of this year, a way to complete the entire game without needing the Reducto spell, which normally you would unlock after playing the 3rd level in year 6. So, because we're able to skip the whole game, we can, or we play the whole game without Reducto, we can skip 2 levels in year 6, as well as, I believe, 2 lessons.
Yes,
Maybe 3 lessons. Yeah, I think it is 3 lessons, actually.
Is it?
So
Drought of Depth and Reducto. What else?
The Dumbledore's Memories is the other.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the 3rd one. True.
So we skip those 5 segments of the run with this skip, which is, wow, that was quite the launch you got there. Which does save a lot of time, but it involves some pretty tricky stuff later in the run that we'll get into. So on our way back through the castle from year 6, after leaving like the path to Hogwarts, there's a door in that doorway that takes you back to year 5. And the reason that's there is because in the first episode, right after we built the cart with the Thestrals on it, we hit a door that played the Hogwarts Grand Hall cutscene in year 5. And that cutscene doesn't get destroyed until you re-enter that room in year 5, which normally would happen on your way to 5-4. But since we haven't played that, and we're not going to play that in the speed run, that door never gets destroyed. So if you enter that room in another episode, it just takes you to year 5, which is very useful since that routes out a lot of hub movement. If that didn't happen, this run would be a decent bit longer. So this is Dumbledore's Army level. The main goal of this level is just to recruit all of the students to be in Dumbledore's Army. And although we can freeze clip through all of these obstacles early, we still have to do most of the puzzles to make most of the characters be active. Since if you skip some things in this room, it just makes the characters don't even spawn in. So we do have to do a lot of this level, regardless.
And I believe the level does not end if you haven't recruited everybody from here, so we do need to do that anyways.
Yep. You need all 7 of the characters in order for the level to end. So there's 4 in this room, and then once we enter the next room, there'll be another 3.
So actually, okay, go ahead.
Unfortunately, we don't actually need to do everything in puzzles. Anything that doesn't involve saving a character, we can skip, like this door here. You need to end up inside of here, but we don't need to open that door as part of recruiting a student, so we can get in here early. Is this the only book puzzle in the run?
I don't think. I remember there's probably. I think there is one more, but I don't remember where. I can't think off the top of my head. But I think there's one more.
Yeah, it's an ability that's not used very often. And speaking of abilities that's not used very often, we just use Expecto Patronum one time, and I believe that's the only time that's used as well.
Yes, this is the only time we ever need that spell, and we have it unlocked because Harry has it by default.
Yeah, since he learned it in year 3. There is actually a lesson for learning Expecto Patronum in year 5, but because we don't need it at any point in the run, we don't need to play that far into that episode. While opening this door here, Seed's going to run up and open the library in the upper left with Augmente. And the reason for that is because we're actually going to use the library to Year Warp later. Similarly to some other rooms, like I was talking about with the Augmente room, here the library does not have a Year 5 version, so if you enter it in Year 5, it actually takes you to Year 7 Part 2, which is very useful.
This is very weird, and it's very convenient because you can access that room in Year 6 and Year 7 Part 1, and it just but it still warps you straight to Year 8 or Year 7 Part 2.
Yeah, ooh, that was a really good clip.
Yeah, that's like the first time I ever got clip that fast.
Yeah, that clip there, it doesn't actually skip anything other than just waiting for the animation of the door. So if you don't get it, it only loses like a couple seconds, but getting it fast is still fast. And that was a really good clip there, so this is pretty good split.
This would be a gold if I had my life split open, probably. Yeah, this is just like... Yeah, we talked before about this run being, like, the game being designed very conveniently in what we need. And this is one of those things with the library, which we'll see after the next level, where, like I mentioned just like 5 seconds ago, you literally, the library has, you can enter it in year 6 and year 7, part 1, but it warps you to year 8 if you enter it in year 5 for some reason. Oh,
yeah. And another thing you can do with Lumos is if you pass through a kill plane and you Lumos, it actually brings you back to life. Like there, you can pass through it without dying, which allows us to get from the top of the staircase to the bottom without needing to jump down. And real quick, there's another door right here at the beginning of this room.
Oh.
But unfortunately, Snape does not have Lumos in this level, which means that he is going to be kind of tricky to clip with. You'll see that Siedemnastek paused there, and for this, for some reason, in this level only, if you pause the game, your character continues to freeze move during the pause screen. I have no idea why that is, and it only works in this level, but it's convenient because otherwise we'd have no way to like extend movements. The door is just sitting right there.
Yeah, there's an out-of-bounds door, which looks like it's an intended door, but it's actually an out-of-bounds door placed just like after the gate.
Yeah, that was one of the out-of-bounds doors that was found in vanilla just by playing the game, since that's one that's just sitting out there. It's relatively easy to accidentally hit. There's a couple that were found that way. The one in 6-1 was also found that way.
Yeah, they are placed in spots that actually, compared to other games, are very accessible. Actually, it's because we can clip through walls very easily, but also all of them, or like a lot of them, are in places that you would expect them to be.
Yeah, they're like near the end objective of the level or something like that. There's one in 7-1 that we didn't hit, but it's just like right behind the cake, and you can go run to that pretty easily. Unfortunately, we're not able to do it in the run though for a bunch of technical reasons.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
We tried to
not gonna
route
get
that
into
in a
that.
couple of months ago, but it just didn't work.
Yeah. Um, you might be wondering why we're playing these year 5 levels, because the Dumbledore's army level, dueling, and this level actually don't give us abilities that we need. Dueling looks like it unlocks an ability, but it actually doesn't. You're able to duel without doing that lesson. So
Yeah.
these 3 splits don't actually give us anything. We need to play through them to get to the Defendo lesson, which is another spell that we're going to unlock right after this. And that's actually the last spell that we need. The only other spell we haven't talked about yet is
Focus.
Focus, which surprisingly is not unlocked from this level, which is called Focus. You have to play through 5-4 and then 2 other lessons to get to the Focus lesson, which is quite a bit of time. But fortunately, we're able to beat this game since there's only one required usage of Focus to beat the game casually from here on out, at least in the levels that we're playing. And we
Actually,
do
I
have a way of
think
skipping that.
even if we played all the levels, we would still need focus for only one thing.
Yeah. Um, it's not a really widely used spell in this game. So now we're going into Defendo here. And there's a nice little skip that we can do to skip most of this lesson as well. It has 3 objectives at the top of the screen, but the spell unlocks after you do the 3rd objective, so you don't even need to play the first 2 objectives. You can just get up here with some platforming and then build this fish here, and that unlocks the spell, which this is another really fast lesson here that doesn't need a lot of stuff. It's really similar, actually, to the Augmente lesson in that you can skip like the first half of the lesson and then just do the last part of it.
But you might actually wonder if there is a theoretical way we could possibly skip the spell in a run, and the answer to that is no. It's not possible to even theoretically skip the spell because of how the game is designed, and I think it's a good time to go over that right now.
Yeah.
So we are skipping, like we mentioned before. Actually, I'm actually warping to year 8 right now with the library, as we talked about before. But we are actually skipping 3 different spells, like we mentioned before. So Reducto, which is the Reducto way the route is named Reductolas, and Expecto Patronum, and Focus. And a good thing about those 3 spells is that some characters have them before you unlock the spells, and it's not the case for any other spell in the game. So that's why we're only able to skip those 3 spells and not any other spells.
Yeah, even like Dumbledore doesn't have access to Defendo or Augmente early, which means that even if we found ways to cheese levels or something, we'd still need to beat levels that have required usages of Defendo and Augmente, meaning that it'd be hard to get around those. Now, Augmente doesn't really matter since it takes so little time to get that one, but Defendo is quite a bit out of the way. We need to play a lot of year 8 or year 5 to get to that. But it's just it's not going to get out of the route. It's way too much stuff in the way.
Basically, the only way we could skip Defendo or Agumante is if we were to if we are able to get to the last level of the game early, which is not possible.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk a bit about the Reducto uses in the run, because obviously we're not going to get Reducto, but for a while there was only a couple of Reducto uses in the run, and uh, we don't unlock it until midway through year 6, so it's not used anywhere in year 5 or year 6. It's not used. Actually, it is used in the first level of year 7, but because we have adult characters in that level, they have Reducto by default, so we don't need to have it unlocked for that one. It's not used in this level. It's not used in 8-2. I don't think it's used casually in 8-3, but
Nope.
in 8-4, there is 4 casual usages, and only 2 of them have, like, trivial skips, or relatively trivial skips. So there was 2 that were pretty tricky to get around for a while, but we did eventually find ways of getting around. Los found one for one of them a while back, and then Seed found the other one this past April, which enabled that new route. So in this level, we're going into Hogwarts or Gringotts Vault to get the Horcrux, but we're actually going to completely skip getting the Horcrux because as soon as you go into the vault, you can clip immediately back out and skip the whole puzzle in there getting it. And then it's just a matter of playing the back half of this level or this room. You're actually able to do all of these puzzles here in the second half of this room on your first visit to this room, but it doesn't.
It soft locks the game.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing to do. It's actually very difficult because the whole floor is like a kill plane, and you need to stand on like objects in order to use all these. But it just ends up soft locking after that anyway, so it doesn't even skip anything.
But it would definitely be the worst skip in the game if it worked.
Yeah, it's not a fun time.
Yeah, I have tried it myself, and I don't even know, like, because it's very strange that if you like finish the puzzle early, the game just you get put in a very glitched state of the room. But if you just dip out of the vault and continue the level as normal, it just works for some reason. It's a very weird programming thing there.
Yeah. So
This
now
is
that
probably
we're
the
done,
most important part about the run of the run,
yeah.
right here.
So we mentioned earlier that focus is unlocked by default on some character, and there is one required usage of focus. So we're going to do that usage in free play here, but we do need the character of Albert Runecorn, who is the most conveniently located focus character in the game, because there's really actually not very many focus characters, and a lot of them are really expensive or super out of the way. Albert is the only one that is neither expensive nor out of the way. He's only 25,000.
25k,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, which is really cheap, and he's just right here in an area that we normally go to anyway. He is like, out of the ones that are reasonably inexpensive, he is by far the fastest one to get, and it's really convenient that he's just sitting right there.
Like we said before, everything just adds up into a perfect run.
Yeah. So now that we have him, we have both of the free play characters we're going to get. So it's just a matter of playing through the rest of the levels. So this is 8-2. The first room we mostly just run through. There is a really long camera pan coming up that we get to skip. The camera pan of this wood chipper eating all these blocks is actually like super duper long, but because we skip it, the collision goes away right at the beginning of the camera pan. And then it's a free clip right here to skip this barrier as well.
Okay, wow, that was... I did not think that was gonna work, but... That's probably the weirdest free slip of the run, because the trigger is placed, like, inside of the wall.
Yeah.
And sometimes you actually have to clip through the entire wall to even access the trigger, and sometimes it just works magically.
Mm-hmm. It's a really strange one. You can, like, get it by barely touching the wall sometimes. So this room doesn't really have any speed strats, it's just some well-routed 1P2C here to rescue the other three. I don't know if rescue's the right word. I think it's wake up is what we're doing. Just wake up the three members of Dumbledore's army, and then we'll continue on to the last room here.
Which is just a big auto-scroller.
Yep. There's 3 boss fights in this room, and they're all pretty lengthy. This game does not have very interesting boss fights. It's either dueling, like this, which is just pick the correct spell and then spam it. There is some micro time save you can do here because the routing of the order of spells is actually predictable and consistent. So because of that, you're able to know exactly what the next spell is going to be every time and switch to it as quickly as possible. But it still is just sitting here spamming the buttons at this guy, which is not exactly the most interesting boss fight. And then the other kind of boss fight, this one, where you're just standing around waiting for an enemy to throw stuff at you. Fortunately, this level is the only place that actually has these boss fights. Every other boss fight in the game we skip.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the ones in the final level of the game, which...
Yeah, that's good. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. It used to be that split was I don't know how long it would have been in this category because we didn't have no cut when that skip was found, but this last split in standard used to be like 12 minutes long, and now it's like 4 minutes long.
And
Which is
3 of
great.
those minutes is just walking.
Yeah.
Okay. And you will see me swapping to specific spells because actually the Aguamenti has a much faster animation of like shooting, so if we get the enemy to be on Aguamenti, we're able to defeat them a bit quicker. But you actually have to be very careful because the enemy can also shoot Aguamenti very quickly and it can lose you like 5 seconds.
Yeah. Snape has a tendency to shoot really fast, at least in that fight there.
Yes, exactly. Now we're going to 8-3, which is a weird level. It has... Actually, probably has the most intended gameplay out of Year 8. Or actually, no, 8-1
Yeah.
probably has more. But
I like this level. This is one of my favorite levels.
I will try to showcase a new piece of tech in this at the very beginning of this level, but it might not work, and I might just stick to a backup, I guess. Because even though I have a setup that was literally found, I found like 2 days ago, it still is kind of problematic. But yeah, you'll see in just a second what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So we give these teachers the items they're looking for, and that starts the level here.
It is actually possible to start this level early. There is an out-of-bounds trigger you can hit, but it does not progress the story.
Yeah.
You're not able to skip 8-1 and 8-2. Would be
It'd
very
pretty cool
convenient,
to do
but does not work. Okay. So you can actually make the other character jump over this wood here, but it's very weird, and I'm gonna mess with it for like 20 seconds, but if it doesn't work, I'm just gonna showcase the other thing. And it seems like it's not working today. Okay, I'm just gonna do the easier thing.
Yeah, there's a just strange AI manip where they think you're on the other side of this barrier. But fortunately, there's a backup there with a pause fly. Have we talked about pause flies very much?
Yeah. Data band.
Okay.
And this is the piece of tech we used before called buffer jumping. If I buffer like I said before, if I buffer the jump on the first frame, I'm able to survive jumping on the goo there. Didn't work the first 2 times, but it's a very convenient skip. You also can pause fly through the goo, but I actually have very low FPS in that one section for some reason, so I just rather do the goo jumps.
Yeah.
Another example of pause fly coming up here.
This is a interesting room. We have to get the 5 bombs to progress to the next room, but there's a couple of interesting like movement-based skips here. We have one coming up with Neville, who's on the right.
The AI manip here. If you put down the toad and get them to the dynamite's chest, Neville will actually jump back to his toad, even though he's not supposed to access that area.
And that skips the whole thing with building a trampoline, which actually takes quite a bit of time, so it's nice we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Neville is the bottleneck here, so it doesn't really matter what Seamus does in the meantime. Neville's task is going to take quite a bit longer to complete.
And it's a bit more annoying, but luckily... So, if you get hit on the fire there, with holding the bomb, you will lose, and it will lose like 10 seconds, because you'll have to go all the way, and actually it takes a while to respawn.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Some people... I know some people like to put out the fire there, but it is a little faster to not do that. And we clip into the Chamber of Secrets here, and for some reason when you do that, you just get launched into the sky when you spawn into this room with high FPS. I think it's because you're near some like weird physics collision or something.
I think you spawn in one of, or like very near one of the rocks there, and that just launches you on very high FPS. And I'm actually gonna be switching to 30 Hz right here during the animation of Hermione getting the bag, because this level, if you have very high FPS, is not possible to complete. You will just not be able to get the hook from Basilisk for
Yeah,
some
this
reason.
the pair of pliers there is really dumb to get into place with high FPS. For a while, we did that in runs, but it was just like it's so slow because it takes absolutely forever for it to
Okay,
lock in place.
the hardest level of the run.
Yep, this is the climax here. This is
This was the last obstacle for Reductolas, and
yeah.
it has some interesting. You will basically see a different, or actually, you'll see a launches. Actually,
Yep.
two are the same, but you get the idea.
Yeah. So this first room, there is a required, if to beat it casually, there's a required reducto use on the in this first section immediately to your left to get one of the ingredients to a potion. But we can do a pet launch here and then pause fly over all the obstacles to not only skip that required reducto usage, but also just everything else in this room, which
Yeah,
is
and if
pretty
I
great.
get lucky, like right here, I get enough height to skip the entire room, which is not always what happens. Sometimes you don't get enough height to skip the entire room, and then you have to use a
Yeah.
deluminator. Okay, I'm gonna focus here because this is a difficult part. This is another launch, and it's the only one in the game that like this.
Yeah. So there is a required reducto usage in this room that's impossible to skip without hitting the trigger, and the trigger is far away. Seed's gonna do a launch here with Crookshanks.
Okay, might actually work. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Wow. One more trigger to go in this level.
Yeah, and I know he got it first try there, but that is actually pretty tricky.
It's RNG. The launch is RNG. Or actually, it's not RNG, but if you drop even one frame when you're in that corner, you will just fall. So it's just a matter of not dropping frames, which I got very lucky with.
Yep, and there's another launch there that skipped some cutscene camera pan triggers that kind of warp your character, as well as a whole bunch of puzzles, but those puzzles are skippable without that. There was a required reducto usage in there, but that's one that's really easy to skip. It's what he skipped it by just like jumping up.
And this is the final showdown.
Yeah, this is the new one that was found. Did
By
a
me.
camera pan skip there to get out of bounds with Hermione.
Oh my god. Okay, we're gonna be here for a while. This is a Stratosphere launch, which can happen if your positioning is very weird. So get ready to stare at the roof for like 2 minutes.
So,
This is it's not bad for this run, but if that happened in like a PB attempt, that would just be a reset.
yeah. So there's some strange collision there, and if you hit it the correct way, it gives you a lot of upwards momentum, which is good because it's impossible to hit the trigger without some way to do that, since it's a decent bit away as well, similar to the Room 2 one. One thing about this trigger, though, is if you don't hit it, you actually, yeah, you end up getting soft lock, because once you end up out of bounds like this, the kill plane at the bottom of the room like just doesn't work for you anymore, and you can't get back up.
The more technical explanation is that when you are in the plane that we skipped, you get an immunity for every single kill plane, and that effect does not go away because we skipped the camera pan. So you're not able to die with Hermione. That is extremely weird, but that's how it works. And yeah, we're just gonna be sitting here until I notice that Hermione starts falling, then I will start pause flying. I think she started falling, actually. I don't know. It's very weird to see.
Yeah. This is a well-made game with high FPS. It really does have great physics system.
Actually, I think it would be faster if I restarted the level, but I'm just gonna wait for it. So if you're wondering why the estimate for this run is 115, even though my PB is 104, yeah, this is why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Has this happened to you many times in runs?
Yeah, but I usually try to prevent that. Uh, but like, so the amount of height you get is based on how you position yourself on the collision. And yeah, if you do it incorrectly, which I assume I did, you just get insane height, and I'm falling, so it's time to get ready. So yeah, this might look confusing, what I'm about to do, but I can assure you I have a visual cue that will most likely work. And I'm just stalling, just pausing every now and then to stall the flight. To make sure that I don't fall. Okay, we hit it. Let's go.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was very close because I dropped a bunch of pulse flies at the end. That was just because when you stream, you obviously have lower FPS than when you play normally. So that was very fortunate that I was able to react in time. Okay, so since we completed the level with the out of bounds trigger, the story does not progress like in 6-1. So we're actually gonna be heading to the shop and we're gonna be buying Albert Runcorn and Muggle Orphan. And we don't really need Muggle Orphan, but Albert Runcorn is one of the guys that have Reducto. And so we'll be... Okay, so in order for the story to progress now, we're gonna have to end the level with the intended way of completing it. Which will require us to use Reducto in the end room.
Indeed. So now we're going to play the level again, and any skip we did the first time around, except for the one in the last room, we're able to do again, but Seed's not going to do the one in room 2 since it's not actually, like, faster.
Yeah, it's like 15 seconds, and that's unfortunate because now I have to wait for the... So when Hermione gets the objects out of her bag, it's actually random what objects she gets out, and if she gets the red thing that I just got, it's very hard to push it, and so whatever this object is, it will be hard to push it.
Yeah, but fortunately we're able to do this skip again here.
I don't think I have enough height, but we can just do the backup.
Yeah.
Actually, I have enough.
A good showcase of the backup, I guess.
Actually, I don't even need to do the backup.
Oh, okay.
That was quite enough.
Yeah.
So as you can see, Albert Rancor now has the Reducto spell that we were able to use in this room. We complete it normally, and you can see how simple this room is normally.
Yeah, this is a very quick room, but unfortunately, you need Reducto for it, which is kind of annoying. Especially because, like, it seems like there'd be ways to do it without Reducto, but there's a lot of things you can try and do, and none of them actually work to skip it.
And so that 30 Hz launch that we used in the story split, that was found by Los. We mentioned before that he's a glitch hunter for this game, or was, maybe. And if he hadn't found that, Reductoless would not be possible, because there is no way to get a different kind of launch in that room. There is 3 pieces of tech we used to launch in this game. Wait, why is my... Hold on, I'm messing up my character management. That's...
You always spawn not on the brooms in free play in this.
Yeah, that's just a weird free play thing. And if he hadn't found that launch, which is still the only one in the game that does that, Reductors would not be possible, because even though we have 3 ways of launching in this game, this is the only one that we are able to pull off in that room.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, it's having Reductoless skips like 5 year 6 splits, I think. So it ends up saving like something like 7 minutes in this category.
It's like 15 with cutscenes.
Yeah, 15 with cutscenes. So even though there was that launch that sent Hermione to the Stratosphere, that still very easily saved a bunch of time to not even going for Reductoless.
Yes. Like, I guarantee you, if you if you're able to do Reductoless and you had a PB about it, you'll beat your previous PB on the first attempt of Reductoless. Just how much it saves.
Mm-hmm. So now that that free play split is over, we're gonna do a little bit of warping around here. Um, so by coming out of the Leaky Cauldron, that gives you access to the ability to quit game back to, or sorry, exit to Diagon Alley here, which just warps you to the beginning of this. And we're gonna do that twice after this that free play split and the next one. So now that we've done the free play split, Nearly Headless Nick is directing us to 8-5 since 8-4 has been completed now. So now that we've done that, we're able to go to 8-5, but 8-5 also has a problem because that's the level that has the required focus usage. And we also have not unlocked focus. So we're going to have to do a very similar thing that we did in 8-4 on 8-5, and we're going to use an out of bounds trigger to end the level, and then we're going to have to go back and beat it in free play. This one
This one
was
is gonna be
found.
less chaotic, and it was found by
Yeah,
accident. By you, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah. I found the trigger by accident. Was just running out of bounds in this room because it's in a very easy to hit location. But me and Toffee, I think in 2019 or 2020, figured out the focusless route for this game, which was the main route that was done prior to Reductoless being found. And that allows a skip of a lot of segments of year 5 for the focus.
This is weird. So you're able to use the magic on this hand without actually going up top. It's actually the case for every single object up there on that second floor, but it can be a bit finicky, and it took me like 5 tries to get now.
Yeah.
And
But
you
that
might want to
skips.
explain this here.
Oh, yeah, so there's another Reducto usage here. There's a couple ways to skip it, but C's going to go for the fastest one, which involves pause flying. But this is a pretty tight pause fly. You cannot really drop like any to make this. And then once he gets over there, the spiders are going to spawn in, and Ron is scared of spiders. So he needs to get over to where the troll is pretty quickly, otherwise
Oh,
he's
actually,
gonna
I failed it. Okay, I'm just gonna go for the backup because I fell off.
Okay. So
There is a way that you can, like, okay, you go ahead and explain it.
yeah.
You probably know what I'm talking about.
Now that the spiders are here, Ron is not capable of jumping, and we need Ron for the end of this room, so we need to kill these spiders. These would spawn in either way, but normally you're up top already if you do the pause fly. But it is pretty tricky, and sometimes they spawn in early. But there is a
Pixel jump.
yeah, pixel you can do right here, and you can get a jump through that gap in the staircase over there on the right.
But it might be tough. I hadn't done this. Okay, never mind. I didn't do this in a while. I don't think I ever had to do it in a run. But it's just better to do that because, like, if the post flight does not work for a couple of tries, chances are you're probably gonna lose time with it.
Yeah. And for some reason, so more spiders spawn on the right, but for some reason, when you have your character over by the troll, it just makes enemies despawn as soon as they spawn in. So as soon as these spiders are done spawning in, they'll despawn instantly, and then Ron will be able to use this again. Which is, again, is super fortunate that that happens, because otherwise we'd have to get the other characters over here so we can kill the spiders. But luckily we don't have to do that.
Wouldn't even be that bad, it just would be slower.
Yeah.
Basically. And this is where I'm gonna be starting to go for the end level trigger.
Yeah.
Oh, and also a
There's
good thing to
actually-
mention, if I can go, jump in.
Yeah.
You actually saw me just complete the puzzle, but the troll was not in the way because we skipped him. The troll actually is in 3 stages of that first room, and the game uses the same model for each of the stages. So if you skip even one of them, the troll just won't appear in the next stage.
Yeah, but the collision, like his collision is still there, so you have to beat the puzzle to be able to hit the door. We kind of went right past it, but
Yeah.
C just walked out of bounds because there's a big out of bounds area in that last room, and the door is just sitting like at ground level behind Snape, so you don't even need to like do anything special to get to it. And now we have to play 8-5 again for the same reason, but there's a couple of free play strats that we'll see here. I actually really like these 2 free play levels because you see like a totally different set of strats in each play.
Yeah, it's not like
So
the same thing all over again. It's just completely different thing.
yeah, which is cool. So we still have Albert and we still have the Muggle Orphan, but because we don't need to do a Ron clip, we're gonna just clip through this instead of doing the other strat. You can clip with Ron in story, but it's just like,
Actually, that doesn't even work, because if you clip with Ron, the spiders never get despawned.
oh, that's right, that's right.
Because it
Yep.
would technically be faster to do that clip with Ron, but it just, like, does not work at all.
Yeah, and Muggle Orphans
Can launch.
roll attack launches you because this is a well-made game, um, and that skips needing to do the pause fly or the buffer jump or the use the catapult or any of that. It's just basically walking in a straight line through there, and then we do the same thing again here. But for some reason in free play, Ron is not scared of spiders anymore. Don't know why, but that's just
Yeah, but
quirky little
that's
thing.
very good that they made that be a
Yeah.
thing. It would be very annoying.
And now we're gonna have to play the last room the intended way, but we're able to still skip a lot of it with a freeze clip, since the only things we are required to do are the steps needed to complete the last objective. So these first like 3 or 4 puzzles here, we can still clip around those and get it to the back half of this room. And
This is the only usage of focus in the game, actually.
yeah. So focus is supposed to be like you can read people's memories or something. So Snape wants a barrel so he can cry into it because he's dying because he ate the last cookie, I think is what happened. In the
Yeah.
So in order to get his memories out of his tears and get all the backstory we need to beat the bad guy, we need to get a barrel here. And just because we do not have the ability to shoot focus at that cloud, there's no way to beat this room casually, which is a little annoying, but fortunately it's not like route breaking. It just means we have to do this free play split here.
Yeah, and that was the last Carapan skip of the run.
Yep.
And so now we have completed 8-5 in free play. Now the story progresses to 8-6, the last level of the game. So now we're just gonna go straight to 8-6, which is gonna take, like we mentioned before, 3 minutes of walking, approximately.
Yep. So we did that same warp again here, and we're going to use the Vanishing Cabinet again to get back to Hogwarts, since it's way faster than using the train. And these are the only 2 ways to get back to Hogwarts from
Actually,
here.
using the train does not work because the door that takes you to year 5 is still there. That's why
that's true. I forgot about that.
That's why this is essential.
Yeah, but it's also like relatively close to where you want to go anyway.
Yeah.
Especially in for 8-5, I guess. So we need to go back to Hagrid's hut, and this is the last level. So normally there would be a boss fight with Bellatrix in this level, and a boss fight with Nagini, and a boss fight with Voldemort, and a whole bunch of cutscenes and all this garbage. But we are not going to do any of that because this level has a pretty interesting design in that you spawn in the first room, and then after beating the first room, it takes you to another room where you do this whole boss fight with Bellatrix, and then after beating that room, it takes you back to the first room. So the room that you start in is actually the last room of the level, meaning that if you hit the trigger in that room, it just ends the level. And fortunately, we're able to hit the trigger. It's like in a relatively easy to hit spot. We don't have to do anything fancy. We just need to clip out of bounds and do some parkour.
And it was also found by accident, but by one of the old runners.
Yep.
There used to be a strat where you used to call in Harry out of bounds, because he used to be in your character wheel at all times, he just was not active. And somebody just like messed up the out of bounds movement with Harry and like hit the trigger.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm out of bounds and I'm gonna be...
This level has a required usage of Expecto Patronum, and that was the way we got around that back in the day. But
and timer's gonna end when I hit the trigger. Oh, and I think I missed the jump.
Yeah. So all these jumps are really close to like popping in bounds. It's actually a relatively tricky movement.
So yeah, you can finish what you were saying.
Yeah, no, that was pretty much all I had to say. But yeah, so Voldemort's dead now. We saved Hogwarts.
Yeah, just by going through a door that's just conveniently there. Yeah, that's just this game. Like we said, I said that 3 times before, I think, but this game is just very conveniently made in our favor.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty solid run, all things considered, with that launch into the sky.
Yeah, and the Weasley boxes soft lock, but I mean, that was like okay. Uh, so yeah, this is the Reductolus. This is the newest. This is the fastest route you can run in this game. Hard, but saves a lot of time. I recommend checking out this game if you're interested. And I'm gonna be giving shoutouts to first off Chimkin for being a very veteran runner of this game and finding a lot of earlier and also the newer tricks. And thanks also for joining me in the booth today. I don't think I could have done it without you. The commentary, I mean. Uh, Next shout out to Los for figuring out partially or figuring out most of the Reductolus stuff, finding the out of bounds triggers. It's just the one that finished the job. I can't take credit for what he has done for the game. Also want to give big shoutouts to Frost and Captain Paxo for helping me with a bunch of stuff that I did not know about and they told me about with this game just recently. And I think that's it from me. If you have any final words, Chimkin, go ahead.
Yeah, I also want to give a big shout out to Toffee for finding freeze clipping to begin with, since before that, this game was an almost glitchless run. But that completely broke the game open, and it's made it into one of my favorite Lego speedruns. It's really, really cool game,
Really fast
especially with
paced.
yeah.
Sorry if you had troubles like keeping up with the commentary. This is a no cutscene run, so a lot of things were happening really fast. Barely any time to to say anything.
Yeah.
But I think we pulled it off really good.
Yeah, I think that was I really enjoyed watching that. I think that was a great showcase of the game.
Yeah, so I think we can wrap it up.